He goes, I have really bad news. You have stomach cancer. And I was like, what? I'm by myself. It's like, you can't wrap your head around that.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. So that, like, how did you even, like, walk out? Like, how do you, I mean, I couldn't even.
I was in a dream. I called, like, I don't know, a couple of clients came to mind, and I just called them and texted them, and they were calling while I was still sitting there, like, what's going on, And they're like, whatever you do, like, you're not doing this alone, Like, one of them actually came with me. Like, he was like, I'm going to get you in with this one oncologist. He's really hard to get in. He's really booked, but we're going to do this. Another one of my... a friend of mine, he's a surgeon at Cedars and stuff, and so they were friends. He and the GI doctor are friends, and they're like, we know this great oncologist. We think that's who you should go to. He's really good at keeping everyone alive. That's his thing. And I'm like, what do you mean keeping everyone alive? I'm gonna die, you know. And I mean, yes, I'm going to die, but, and so not of this. Yeah. And so anyway, I mean, so it was great. This client, she's like, my husband's going to go with you. You're not going to do this alone. And 8 a.m. the next day, I'm sitting in front of the oncologist, and I'm glad I wasn't alone, and for 5 hours telling me that I have, well, we didn't know what stage it was then, but, that I have the most aggressive type of stomach cancer, that what would have to happen, like, he's just, like, handing me these papers of, like, it's called FLOT, of the kind of chemo I would need to do. And he's like, probably don't even read that because that'll make you really sick, because it's going to be gnarly. I mean, this is gnarly chemo. I mean, it all is, but this is just crazy. Yeah. And then, on top of it, you have to have your stomach removed. Like, there's not going to be really anything left in your abdomen by the time you're done. You have to have a feeding tube put in for a while. It's a 14-hour surgery. You have to have high pick done, which is hot boiling chemo dumped into your stomach, 3 rounds. Jesus. And I was like, I'm in a sci-fi movie, and I'm the main character, and this is a nightmare, like, that's what I felt like. I felt like this is like one of those horrible movies where you get kidnapped and tortured, but I'm like paying people to do this to me. Right. I was just like, it didn't resonate with me. Like, I mean, who would that resonate with? But I was just like, I can't wrap my head around this. Like, what?
So fast, like Reader's Digest me, like, the following 3 to 4 weeks of, like, what you experienced, and then, because, well, I don't even know. I remember when you had this spiritual awakening in this dream. Yeah. So just go through what you went through medically, through conventional oncology, to the point where you had kind of like a awakening.
So, so then, then next day I was like 5 hours getting MRIs, ultrasounds, PET scans, all this stuff, like, just boom, boom, boom. So I went through a lot of that. Next, I'm getting exploratory surgeries done. Having my abdomen filled with saline solution, just trying to figure out what stage it is.
They couldn't even get up there at some point because it was blocked.
Right. Well, then I did an endoscopy, ultrasound, and another colonoscopy where they had to use a pediatric scope to get through because the cancer had left the stomach and actually wrapped around the outside of the transverse colon and cut everything off. So not only, I mean, you couldn't even touch my stomach. It was bulging out. And, like, my colon was in a spasm, like, sticking out. It looked like an alien. It was painful. I was in pain. I was vomiting every morning and couldn't eat. I was down to 100 pounds, 102, 100 pounds, dropping weight so quickly, no energy, acid reflux like crazy. And so I'm going through all these procedures. I'm having complete anxiety at night. So this one night, I remember I was taking a bath, trying to do like a salt bath just to calm me before sleep. And, it's the beginning of summer. We're finally able to get out and do things. And I was thinking, wow, everyone else gets to, like, go dancing and go have fun. And I'm dealing with this. And this voice came to me. And it was like, accept where you are right now. And I did. I just did. I just accepted. It's, like, hard to explain it, but I just accepted where I was. And all of a sudden, I just kind of felt this little bit of peace. And I was like, okay, I can actually move from here now. I'm not moving from where I would like to be. I'm moving from where I actually am. And it just felt good. And so, so the oncologist and everyone, I'm going and seeing them. And now I'm seeing like 2 different oncologists just to get like different. I've actually in the end all 3 different oncologists. So I'm like trying to, feel out. Everyone kind of has the same agenda of like what's going on. It's just kind of how it is for stomach cancer. And so anyway, where was I at? Sorry.
That's okay. You
had a moment.
So, I mean, 2 weeks later, I think they put a port in.
Yeah, right. So 2 weeks later, they put when they did one of the exploratory surgeries, they put the port in. I mean, it was gnarly. I mean, this port is like, I shouldn't even say that, this long. It goes into the heart. But they put the port in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm doing. Like, I don't have any other options. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, this is what I have to do. I have to do this path, or the only way to cure this, they said, is to remove your stomach. And I'm in complete fear. And I'm not thinking clearly. I'm just like, okay, I guess this is what I do. Even though I always said if I ever got diagnosed with cancer, I would never do chemo. I would never do any of that. And I was just like, but there I am 2 weeks later after getting diagnosed, and I have a port in, And I went and I was supposed to see this one surgeon who was actually going to do the procedure. And he was just kind of not the best bedside manners. But anyway, in the end, he just kind of like just made me feel that I didn't have a chance.
Jesus.
And I just remember that was only like maybe my 4th day in. And should not have been driving. I was driving home, and I was just like, like screaming as loud as I could. Like it brought up every emotion that could come up of like my self-doubt. Like I told you weren't worthy enough to be here. Like all those dark thoughts coming up of like, you're not worthy enough. You don't belong here. Like I felt so detached from the world. I felt like an outsider. Like everyone else is like doing their thing and having fun, and I'm just like I was becoming completely detached from the world. And I go home, and I'm like so mad. I'm like, how dare he tell me I can't, I can't, I'm not going to make it through this. How dare he say that I don't have a chance? And so that night, like it was full on anxiety, and I fell asleep. And a lot of times when I'd wake up, I didn't have problems going to sleep, but I would wake up at like 2, 3 in the morning with complete anxiety. And I would just sit up and I would just play like music. I was playing a lot of like Christian music, and just like it felt so good. And I would just sit up in bed and just like feel it, And this one night after that surgeon said that to me, I went to sleep, and I was in complete fear. And I woke up, and I don't have the kind of cancer that creates you to have night sweats, but I was completely drenched in sweat. That's how much fear I had. And I sat up out of bed, and I was shaking, and I was like, God, I cannot do this. I can't do this. I cannot do this. I need help. I cannot do this. And I like just laid back down, and all of a sudden that voice that came to me, when I was in the bathroom telling me I need to accept where I was, it came to me and it said, I want you to feel that fear. And it was all in my abdomen. And he's like, and I was like, okay, I surrendered to it because I had nowhere else to go. And so I surrendered to it, and I felt it. And it was like, feel it more. And the more I would feel it, this energy was coming in and like sweeping through my abdomen. And it was like taking out that fear. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like I could feel it. And it was like, go deeper. And I did. I just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper. And it was just taking out all the fear until I was just so relaxed in that bed. And this voice, this is hard to explain, but because it was an experience, but it took me, and it didn't speak at this point. It showed me images of how I think the world sees me. So it was like showing me like I would like be going for something and somebody else would come in and grab it. Like, it was just showing me how I didn't think I was worthy enough to be here. Right. It's pretty much in the end what it was showing me in images. And it was so much like I was just like blown away with like, that's how I think people see me. That's how I think the world sees me. And all of a sudden it took me up into this like black void is what it felt like. and I could feel this energy to the left side. And it was like this voice finally spoke to me, and it said, if you think that's how the world sees you, how do you think God sees you? And I was like, oh my God. All of a sudden it turned me towards that, and this whole entire glass shattered. And I was like being completely held back in my bed. And I was like, oh my gosh, my belief that I'm not worthy is what has been blocking me from having that connection with God. Like, it was the most unbelievable experience. And I was just in like, I never felt so relaxed and so held and so loved. Like, I could actually feel energy holding me while I know, in my bed. And it was amazing. And then I closed my eyes. Like, I knew where I was now. Like, I was in my bed and I was being held. And I was like, I feel so good. I feel like I could just go to sleep now. And then, like 50 feet away from me, I see this man appear, and I'm like, who is that? And then I was like, oh my gosh, is that Jesus? And then he like put his arm out for me to walk towards him, and I took like 5 or 6 steps, and I don't remember anything else. And I just went into the deepest sleep I've ever had in my entire life. And when I woke up that morning, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel incredible. And I was like, I had these 2 little cabins, and I sleep in one, and I was walking barefoot over to my other cabin, and I could just really feel the ground underneath me, and this breeze was blowing, and this bird was flying over me, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I feel peace and joy and love. Like, I don't have any more fear. And then that voice came and goes, nor should you fear death. And I'm like, and since that day, that was 5-6 days in from being diagnosed, like, I get scared and I get nervous. I'm a little nervous doing this podcast, but I definitely have not had fear. Wow. I have not had any more fear. Like, it was like I was being so of the world by letting it validate me and chasing these moments of validation, which was led through like fear and anxiety. And then God stepped in and took that fear away and replaced it with joy and love and peace. Like, I'm going through an experience that's supposed to be like this, traumatic experience. And I feel more love, joy, and peace than I've ever felt in my entire life. Oh my God. Like, I feel the best I have ever felt, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
I mean, that's remarkable. And I remember you telling me the story once you finally told me. It was probably a few days later when you called me and you're like, this is what's going on. I was like, what? God, I need to see you right now. And we were talking about this experience and how, the stomach is the core. I mean, the actual center of self, right? Like, it's right there in the middle of your body.
Yeah, it's my center of self.
And you were just saying how in that short period of time, in a week's time after getting this diagnosis, even though you'd been experiencing these symptoms for 1.5 years or a year, like, for you to have that realization, for God to show you how you've been operating in the world completely disconnected from the truth of your divinity, and seeking outside validation, feeling not worthy of even being here. You kind of lived kind of like a work, and then an isolated life. And you were always trying to crack the code, and you were always trying to better yourself. And you are surrounded by really beautiful people.
Absolutely.
Like, all of your clients are your friends, and these are remarkable humans that are doing great things. But, it just, we talked about how you had completely shut yourself off from your own divinity. And you blocked your sense of self. You were seeking outside. And it's just so interesting to me. I love, and this is part of the reason I did heal, is that emotional, energetic connection to dis-ease or imbalance in the body and where things show up, and people, Louise Hay talks about different symptoms showing up in your body and how they mean something. They come with a message, So the fact that your sense of self was completely hardened and cut off from flow and energy and health and vitality is just, to me, remarkable. So for you to have this reconnection to your source, to experience that love, peace, and joy, and now, even though you're navigating in the human world, so of course fear and anxiety are going to come up, but that existential fear of death or not being, worthy has been removed.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Heal Podcast. Be sure to tune in for more empowering wisdom and inspiring healing stories. Oh, and make sure you hit the follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss that one episode that holds the answer you've been searching for. And if you feel inspired, we would love you to rate and review us so that we have the opportunity to reach more people. And of course, you can follow us on Instagram for some behind-the-scenes fun and more inspiration at @HealDocumentary and @KellyGorris. Thank you so much, and be well.